Joining us now, she's the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, fresh off another NCAA tournament appearance and regional final appearance. I speak of Jamie Trachsel, joins us here in the circle. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. How would you describe this past fall? You got a lot of players returning, but also a lot of new faces
Yeah.
to mix in. So, how would you describe the fall?
Yeah, I think we were really excited about the fall. Every day everybody showed up, honestly wanting to be there. Everybody from the coaches down. I have 8 freshmen, 4 transfers, so 12 new kids, a little bigger roster this year than last year. And so we really focused a lot on our team, not just the training, but some of the outside parts of building and fostering the relationships. And I think as a coaching staff, we've talked about it a couple of different times. We're really happy with how the fall went.
You won coming off a 41 win season last year, ending up losing to UCLA in the LA regional final. When you look back at last year, what comes to your mind?
We're really proud of last year. We had the little adversity that we went through in the fall, and we had a really successful season. We had a couple of things that hadn't been done here at Ole Miss, and so proud of the our team. Thought we played really, really good the last month of the season. The year before, I don't know that we finished as strong as we had maybe collectively played over the year. And so I thought last year we had a really strong last month. Still not real happy with how we played at regionals both years. You have to play your best when it matters the most. And I think last year with that month that we had, I still think we, underperformed a little bit for what we're capable of at regionals and still finish in the regional championship game. So look for this year to continue to play our best when it matters the most and be able to finish and close out and maybe advance one or two more weekends further.
The committee likes to fly you out to the West Coast, evidently, though. like you wonder, like I think the 2 years now, the regionals, you've been out west, Pac-12 territory there.
Yeah,
That's kind of unique in a way because there's challenges, time zones you have to adapt to quickly in
right.
that week and things like that. So, and you mentioned you had a tough regional. I mean, you played a really good LMU team. You had that
Hmm.
wild elimination game on Saturday just to get to the regional final.
Yeah,
So there was just a lot of things
yeah.
that you had to kind of. If you feel that will benefit you and the group that comes back having gone through that experience.
I do. It was hard and challenging. We try to stay away from the word hard, keeping that in perspective, of course. But our travel out there was, God, it was long. I mean, we got up at 3 in the morning to catch a flight. We just couldn't get a charter flight. Our administration tried, we just couldn't get one. And we had a delay. We had to wait an hour and a half for our bags, and we sat in California traffic for a couple hours. So didn't get to practice that day out. And obviously California has its kind of own like different challenges anyway when you're talking about where potentially you can go and do certain things, because you always have to factor in the traffic. But again, I think sometimes we can take for granted that our routines and we plan great fields and our travel is pretty controlled, especially when we're within our region. And it wasn't easy heading out there by any means, but to win in postseason and continue advancing your season, like it's not. And whether the challenges and it's just the opponents and what you're facing on the field. There's some other elements too. I think it makes you more battle tested. And I think going into year 3, there's an accumulation of different things that we've been through, and that would be one of them too, that will continue building the strength and the depth of this program and the team and what our mentality and our mindset can handle to go over and overcome some things that we're faced with.
You mentioned how you finished strong in the last month of the season because I remember I saw you back in February, late February. You came to Orlando. You still were trying to figure out who you were at that time as a team,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the circle
Right.
at the time. When did
Yeah.
that? When did it change? When was that moment where it kind of clicked, where you saw it clicking, and they're like, "All right, this team is now figured out," and you were able to get finish as strong as you did as far as the regular season there in that last month.
Hmm. I think it took us, getting into conference and halfway through and getting on a little run there. We started off conference and had a really, I'm gonna say bad weekend at Mississippi State, and we kind of just flushed it when we left, and we're just like, we're gonna leave this here and and go back and just get back home and just kind of get our feet underneath us. We had a really strong home season with our tournaments and our midweeks, and so we took care of business when it came to that. And then we had some opportunities that we maybe let slip away. I think every coach could probably say that, but we responded from Mississippi State and coming back and sweeping Missouri at home early in the season. And then started just kind of put some pieces together. And the one thing I think we did really well is we played really well, but some of our games we lost, we didn't play well. And I look for year three to kind of bridge that gap and kind of level ourselves out to be more consistent. Even if we have some games that we maybe lose, that our opponents are beating us versus us maybe playing a hand and kind of beating ourselves at the same time. But we had some injuries in the circle too, some nagging ones, and it gave some other pitchers some opportunities. And I think that whole stretch that we went through, really boded well for that last month, because we had different people step up in different moments, whether it's big hit and big moment, big pitching performance and big moment. And I think because the accumulation of what we went through and having different people step in at different times served us well going into that last month.
Let's talk about your pitching staff. You got a lot of arms, some new faces, but obviously returners. Talk about your pitching staff and how you feel they kind of, will fit this year among you on the
Mm-hmm.
team.
Yeah, Riker's done a great job. He's always been about a full staff and making it very diverse and having different looks and different people who can do different things. And so now that some of these players are in year two, year three with him, and obviously two of them with the transfer and a freshman are in year one, but they've adapted well. And the more that we're here, especially you have some more veterans and more returners that help the new kids come along. And so we're not the only coaches, essentially. We have a lot of different coaches that can help the transition period, the learning curve, for all of our new athletes. And so our returners have been awesome this year and being able to do that in every single area. And we feel really comfortable and confident with the depth of our pitching staff, just with who we have, what they're capable of doing, and maybe some different matchups that we'll be able to use in terms of who we're going to go play, and then how we run our pitchers together. And obviously it's still a game of execution, and but we'll do our best in terms of the preparation and the planning piece of it, but have a lot of confidence in the diversity of our staff and how we can face some different types of lineups and how we can use their strengths with each other.
How does McKenna help your pitching staff coming over from Oregon, the experience that she's had to your staff?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like you said, she's got really good experience, and we faced her last year. So I think when we saw her name, we were very familiar with her because we had a tough first game against Oregon, to open up the whole season. And so I think having that performance and being able to go back and look at our own film and of her on there, we felt like she was a great fit. She's been awesome. So what she has and what she's capable of doing, and can be a difference maker. And in the fact that she comes in with several years of experience is important too, having graduated some experience a lot in a lot of innings the last couple of years since we've been here.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned, I mean, speak to Riker and the job. Mention what he's done there, because you gave him that opportunity. We've talked about it in the past and about how
Mhm.
you picked him, but he's turned in done a great job and is now quietly become
Yeah,
what names that people talk about when they talk about pitching coaches. Just talk about
yeah.
working with him now for a couple of years and what you've learned from him.
Hmm. Well, he's just kind of it, both him and Katie, they're it people, they're it coaches. They care a lot, and he's so invested, and I think he dove in. Like year one was a grind. It always is. It's kind of a new program or new business and stuff. But even for him, like he was kind of like, man, I got to do my job. I'm in year one, and there's things I know and things I'm figuring out. And I think a lot of his success is a big credit to how much he was willing to work. I mean, shoot, he was here till 11 o'clock. It's every day of the week, and that happens in their first couple of years of getting into a new position, a new job. And so I think he's even seen the fruits of his labor for his own confidence and his planning. He's someone who's going to reach out, develop relationships with professionals across, in his world. And he's really kind of found his niche and his passion as a pitcher, player, developer. And he loves that side of it. And he loves that side of it. And then developing relationships. And our pitchers adore him. They respect him. They adore him. They trust him. He cares about them and who they are as people, as pitchers. And so they've just done a really good job developing that whole staff and how to work together and how to communicate with each other. And he's about, building, and he's about like the body and how it moves, and kind of the science and the data behind it too. So I have a lot of trust and confidence in who he is and what he brings and what he's capable of doing. And because that's who he is. And, it's easy to believe in him, and he's easy to root for too. And he's done an incredible job, but he's earned that and he's worked for it.
Offensively, Chris, last year, I think of your offense, I think of Tate Whitley and just setting the tone
Yeah.
offensively. She's among your returners. There, talk about her impact and some of the returners' impact that you expect
Yeah.
offensively.
Yeah, I mean, Tate had a tremendous year, and we as a super senior coming back, she's so level-headed. I think like her consistency with her mentality and her approach, whether it's practice or the games, is always consistent. So probably what you're gonna get. We just don't want her to try to recreate, the incredible season that she had last year. Just kind of let it come to her, and there's gonna be no pressure on our end to try to recreate that. If it happens, it happens, but we know what we're gonna get, and this consistency of the approach and her ability to be a really productive like at bat and out or on actually getting on base. So we know we'll get from her. But Michaela Alley comes back as a lockdown shortstop. Really want to challenge her this year to potentially go after a Gold Glove. She's outstanding. She could be a great hit. She can be a great hitter, and she had some huge hits for us in big moments, and that's who she is. And so look for her to have her best year, and we'll need that. But she's capable of being a run scorer and a run producer on the offensive side, as well as a lockdown shortstop. And those two coming back, obviously has 4-year starters already in this program, and looking to continue to lead this team, and hopefully a place that hasn't been for a while. We look forward to that. And but we have Caitlin Riley who's coming back as a sophomore who had a really good, freshman year. Ansley Furbish is another pitcher because both her and Kate are two-way players.
Yeah.
Ansley will challenge for playing time and potentially the starting role at first base, as well as pitching and hitting in the middle of our lineup. And so, and then we had some big transfers that we talked about too. Paige Smith now has continued to grow and get better on every side as one of our players. And then you got Savannah Sykes, who's a 4-year starter, in this conference, and just has a winner's mentality. It doesn't take you long to talk to when you're talking to her to just be like, you just got it. You're just a winner and you got that mentality. And, we added a power hitter and Maya Stevenson, a game changing swing, and, all around athlete, and Jenna Lord, who can do a lot of different things, who had a ton of starts as a freshman in this conference too. So just really excited about where we're at as our, we have 8 sophomores, 8 freshmen, and they continue to get better too. There's a lot of competition at practice. It's people look forward to being at practice. It's been a great environment because we're not coaching attitude, we're not coaching effort, and there's a lot of competition. But they're doing things the right way, and it's a healthy competition. And the relationship that this team has fostered, over the last few months could be something special.
You mentioned that with the transfer portal, they're adding players like Maya and Savannah and Jenna and company like that. When you look at a players there, how do you, because you've had success bringing players in, what do you evaluate as far as, hey, how do they fit our program in the team? What do you look for in certain players when you
Mhm.
get players like that?
Well, it's always, do you have a need or an area that you'd like to add to the depth and the strength? And I think one thing the transfer portal kind of gives you is some validated experience and success, for the level that you're looking at, and less of a projection, because you can kind of measure them against their conference, who they play, what their numbers say against that level, versus some young players that still may be lacking the experience once they get to college too. So when you can evaluate them, you get to measure them against which you feel like like your level of competition and where they've been. And for us, culture is a big piece of that. There's a lot of great players out there, and but for us, it's got to fit our culture and who we are. We love what we do. We love our players. We love them as people, and we want to enjoy the people that we're around. We spend a lot of time together, and we work when it's time to work, but we certainly want to enjoy each other when we can. And there's time to do both. And we always say you don't have to compromise success in one area of your life for success in another. And I feel like we've kind of found a good balance with that. And we ask a lot of our players, but we show them a lot of respect and give them a lot of ownership as well because of the job that they're doing. So for us, it's, does it fulfill a need? Does it add to the depth and the strength of our program? And is it a great culture piece?
You mentioned a bigger roster than you had. Some coaches like having big rosters. Some don't feel comfortable having big rosters. Obviously, there's a lot of competition that comes with that.
Mhm.
How do you manage a bigger roster? Is that something you like, you're comfortable with, or is that one of those things you just adapt to?
I think just sometimes as you're, for us just going into year 3, we had when we came in here, there was, I think, 29 people on the roster. Last year we had 21. And then this year we're back up to 27, excuse me. And so we just have a lot of good players, and it's our job to manage it, and having healthy competition and people that are challenging each other and pushing each other every day. That's a great thing for our program. It's our job to make sure they feel valued for their roles and their responsibilities and what they bring to, Ole Miss softball and on and off the field. And then, coaches always have to make challenging decisions, and whether it's travel roster, playing roster, starting positions, that doesn't change regardless of, how big it is. And so we respect all of our athletes and appreciate them choosing us to stay, because that's part of it too, is we're kind of keeping your own kids happy and keeping them in your program. And then, the players that have chosen to come with us as freshmen and transfer over into our program, and everyone's been a great fit. And it's for us, where we feel very fortunate with the depth that we have right now.
People that follow your career knows about your background and how much you take pride in defense,
Mm-hmm.
which never gets talked about. When we talk all these previews, we always talk about, hey, what do they do offensively and pitching? But there's the third aspect of the game, which is defense, which I know
Yeah.
you take a lot of pride in. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious when you, especially when you have freshmen coming in, you have transfers coming in, and returners. How much time in the fall do you evaluate how they fit defensively
Mm-hmm.
versus, hey, here's what they can do offensively and pitching, but defensively, hey, they fit in a certain, maybe this position better or things like that. How much time do you spend on that?
All fall. I mean, obviously we're evaluating kind of initially, like, where everybody's at. And then we, put them in kind of the, wherever we kind of feel is we project them out. But, for us, we come back and always have conversations of moving people around. And sometimes they may train in a certain area, but then when we're doing some more inner squads or live situations, we put them in different, positions and stuff. But we spend a lot of time on our practice designs and our layouts. And as coaches, we're at the field all the time doing group work, and just to make sure that we are training them. We never want to put them in a position they're not comfortable or confident. And that's our job to make sure that we're prioritizing that if some of them can and will challenge in multiple positions. And I think the balance of it is, which is the depth of our team, is, what kind of lineup do we want? And I always feel like that's my job. When you have some great offense and some firepower, game changing speed, or maybe it's a matchup offense, from the pitcher that we're going to face, it's my job to prepare them to go out and do their job defensively. And that's what this fall's kind of created a little bit, is the ability to look at our team through a little different lens because of the versatility that we do have, and how we're going to kind of like use our players, and what's the best fit and balance of the hybrid of the offense and the defense, and really getting creative. We get to use our flex, and we have two pitchers who hit. We have some defensive specialists. We have some offensive, like, game changing hitters. And so it's our job is to, we've already talked about that. I think Katie's like, I put 15 lineups together, different lineups together yesterday. And that was a conversation, in early November, late October, that we're having. And so we've been brainstorming that, throughout the fall. And the one thing I think we do a pretty good job of in our program defensively is just talking about transferable skills, and the confidence and of the mentality, and really that not a lot changes. And so we just have transferable skills. So whether you're getting your reps here or here, it's still just a game. A fly ball is a fly ball. A ball on the ground is a ball on the ground. And, and I think our kids have done a really good job adapting to that mindset and mentality, and going out there and executing wherever we're at, wherever they're putting out there.
Has it been maybe in a weird way easier at Ole Miss to evaluate defense versus where you've been before, like Minnesota, Iowa State, North Dakota State? Let's be real. The weather not really great all year round. We'll just leave it as that.
Yeah.
I know it's a little chilly right now in Oxford. You got a nice scarf on, but still,
Yeah.
weather pretty favorable. Does that
Right.
help you evaluate defense a little bit, or does it make it easier?
Situations, for sure. I think just the skill set, that's where I think it probably doesn't matter where you're at. But we saw a lot from a lot of different players, even in our Rebel World Series, which we got to play, in early November, like you're saying, and just see them out, like, performing, 3-game series. I went to game 3, and we had some players that were like, we haven't seen that from you all fall. And that's just showing up and executing and doing their job on both sides of the ball. And so I think it's that piece that we're fortunate down when you have some nicer weather to be outside, to be able in competition setting, decision making, when something's on the line, who kind of steps up and who can kind of show out a little bit consistently. I would say it favors that a little bit too, but it took me a couple years to, and I still, even in our January planning, I want to get back in the Manning and like run 3 or 4 different fields in the infield and be inside a little bit too. So it's a different way of training, but it does open up the opportunity to do some more live and full field things and see your kids really compete, especially late in the fall.
That's an interesting, great point. And I'll ask it this way: how much have you had to adapt coaching in the South
Mhm.
versus coaching in the Midwest, like you've had some of the differences there? How has that been from an adapting standpoint for you?
Yeah, it's taken a bit. I think now we pull up some practice plans that we're happy, like when we first come down here and it's what do you do with this space? And I'm kind of used to being running maybe a couple different fields at the same time, or even at Minnesota we had a great indoor facility and we could open field hit and use the cages and have a curtain that dropped down and do defense and pitch down the other side, so everything could get done within this time frame. And here, if me and Katie both want to be on the field, we can't be on the field at the same time. So that's where I say like our days have maybe gotten a little bit longer as coaches, because for us to do our group work, maybe both of us use the field, and we've been, I think, really dedicated to doing what we need to do as coaches to make sure we're still training the way that we want to train our athletes without compromising that, even though we're maybe kind of sharing the same field. So, or wanting to share that same open space. But I think you're 3 now in understanding what we have for as long as we have to kind of be able to lay out a really, good fall plan. What our January is going to look like using a couple different facilities. We have a great indoor facility here that we get into, and that just might be so that we're both doing what we want to do at the exact same time. And but yeah, I think every year you're somewhere new, it becomes a little easier, a little more comfortable, and even brainstorming with the resources that you have.
It sounds like Katie and Riker obviously have helped you in that regard. Both
Oh
have
yeah.
been used to being in the South. Katie's played in the South, coached obviously in the
Hmm.
South. Has that also helped in the transition there and adapting to it and kind of leaning on them who have ton of experience in this
Oh
department,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Within the conference, even Katie coming from Ole Miss,
Okay.
and how things work here and who to communicate with. COVID was a little different for both of us when we came down here, just because that first year with kind of all the restrictions and the health requirements and things we had to follow. But and it's been a huge help, just helping some, especially in the completely different cultures and parts of the country and different ways of training. You're absolutely right.
What have you learned about the SEC now that you didn't know when you first, obviously your first year?
I maybe when you live the competitiveness, you can always hear about it and know about it and see it. And just that it's a gauntlet every single weekend. Like there's no breather, there's no weekend off. Anybody can beat anybody. Um, and probably the level of intensity that every game requires. And again, not that you don't see that or don't think that, but when you're living that every single day or every single weekend and turning around, and the just the feel of it is different than probably any other conference that I've been part of for the duration. And our for us down here, we start early in March. Where in the north, you're not maybe starting until the end of March. So it's actually a little bit longer season of that same level of intensity and competition. So, and just the competitiveness, like there's a lot of great coaches here that have done a ton for this game and continue to lead a lot of change that is still happening or at least being talked about. And so having in those conversations, being able to learn from some of those coaches and what they've been able to do. And then when the spring turns around, it's friendly fire slash fire, there's a lot on the line with each and every game and each and every series. And you feel that and you know that too. And so I think just the level of the intensity for how long that you have to perform at that level day in and day out and prepare is probably the biggest separator.
You've got Autumn on their staff as a volunteer, Autumn Gloves, who I've
Yeah.
known for a long time, uh,
Yeah.
going back to when she was a player at UCF. So I followed her for a long time. Just talk about what she adds to your
Mhm.
staff. And, this could be significant as in January, we're going to have this big vote where we think
Right.
it'll get voted where the volunteer get an extra full-time position added for
Yeah.
softball and baseball and other sports. So this could impact her. Obviously, will impact her in some potentially. But just talk about her
Right.
and the program and what she brings.
Yeah, it's personal to her, right? Like she played here and I'm just really proud of her. Just we were all young professionals at one point and we're all still growing. I shouldn't even say just as a young professional, we all continue to grow, but it's been really fun to be part of her journey, as a player. And she was an elite player, hands on. We came down here and I knew who she was from playing against UCF. I was at Iowa State at the time. And we were playing a night game. I was like, oh my gosh, this catcher. And she's a little string bean, which she still is, but gosh, she was so skinny, freaking throwing lights out. And I was like, oh, it must be dark out. Then saw her the next day and I was like, nope, nope, that's legit. So I was actually pretty familiar with her just from there. And I got down there, I was like, she's just elite. And I was really proud of everything she gave us, even to become, to be voted, SEC Defensive Catcher of the Year her senior year, and then to stay on. It's been really cool to see her growth because she sees the game like a coach, like the lens that she can see and feel the game is like a coach. And she played it that way too. And so I think and she just got a great mentality and mindset, a lot of confidence. And I think our players respect who she was, but they also have respected how she's transitioned herself into, someone who can coach and kind of lead and see the game and being receptive to that. So she's been a huge asset. It's personal for her. I think anytime you get people in your program where it is personal, their level of investment is just different because they want it to be so successful because it's a little reflection of themselves. But really proud of her. She's a huge asset. For me, probably on the little bit on the other selfish side of the defense, it's been really fun to have someone who's so passionate about defense and catching to be able to have so more of those in-depth conversations, on a daily basis, even in our practice planning too. So I think she's been a huge asset for our program and even on the, how to perform and how to play your best. And with some young athletes and new athletes, I think that will be very valuable for us even this year.
And could have an opportunity to become a full-time
Right.
paid coach there if the vote goes certain in January. What's your thoughts
Right.
on January and the big vote? From what you're hearing and your thoughts overall, as somebody who's obviously grown in this industry, you've
Right.
done every role imaginable as a coach in a
Yeah.
coaching role. So what's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think it seems to have some good traction. I think anytime baseball is kind of leading the push on something, that's always helpful because it's been a topic of conversation for softball for several years now. And, whether it gets voted to 4 or 5, I think the 5, which people may scratch their head about, it's really so that you're adding someone, I think, additional to your staff. Because if we get the 4, my understanding is if we get 4 accountable coaches, the volunteer just goes away. So great that we get another paid position and they get paid for that countless hours that they're in here and doing, and then you get another recruiter in that regard. I think the 5 is that so you almost don't lose that volunteer, and so it'd almost be like the accountable plus a volunteer, which obviously is going to get benefits and paid as well. So hopeful for that, to be honest. I think it's been a long time coming. I mean, the amount of time that volunteers put in, I mean, it's a full-time job. They're just like all of us who are on salary too. So I think it's been a long time coming.
No question about that. So hopefully it goes really well in January. You mentioned baseball. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Obviously, what was it like seeing the baseball program win the national title? In pretty remarkable story. It was one of the last four
Yeah,
teams in. Then people didn't know they would get in or not. Not only they get in, but they go on that run and they win that elusive
right.
national title. What was it like to see that? And I would imagine too something that you used also to inspire your players too to see your
Mhm.
players see that run the baseball did.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it's been a lot of fun here, with Lane doing his thing on with football, and especially the year they had, last year making it to the Sugar Bowl, I think, and then baseball. And so I was fortunate to be able to go up to the very last championship game. And as a staff, we were going to drive over from Colorado, like, oh, if they make it, game 3, we're going to drive over from Colorado because that was the start of the tournament. And then they won the first game. We're like, man, this may not go to that third game. And so I think I texted our travel person at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, hey, is that ticket still available? And she's like, let me see what we can do. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get up there and go to that game. And how many times you get to go to a national championship game and root for your own teams and, be at that school, and just super like happy for their program. And Mike Bianco is phenomenal. It's been great to me since my hire here. Very welcoming, and it has extended himself. And it's a little bit of a kind of the dark horse, which is some of my background. So, which I identify a little bit more with that blue collar, prove it mentality, kind of, come from behind story. And I think they just got battle tested, and their backs were against the wall, and it wasn't easy. Sometimes things can be easier a little bit down here. The weather's always nice, or travel is pretty consistent. And every day that, people were saying things they probably hadn't heard a whole lot, and challenging them a little bit and questioning them and doubting them. And really kind of cool to see the collective group come together and just kind of stay within themselves and go out and prove it each and every weekend for a while, just to earn their spot in postseason and then make that run. And it's something you always hope that you get to be part of because of how special that it looks from the outside.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize you got to go to Omaha. What was that experience to be at Omaha? Not many people could say they've.
Oh no, it was awesome. I was actually standing next to our women's golf coach, and it came down to the last out, and I was like, you might be one of the only people in this space that knows what it's like to maybe be one putt away from winning a national championship.
Right.
Our women's golf team had won it. And she's like, I didn't think about that. I was like, but it was cool. It felt like being at a home series, to be honest. I think
Oh,
75% of it was Ole Miss. And so it was just an incredible experience. Our administrators take really good care of us, and it's very inclusive here, and they want us to support each other, and they give us a means to do that. And so I was grateful that I had the opportunity, after being on campus for 10 days with some recruits, and Katie and Riker had just gone out to Colorado because they were doing a camp out there. And so I was one day behind them, and fortunately got to go be part of something pretty special that you never know if you'll ever be part of again.
no, you're absolutely right. That's a pretty cool experience. You're right. There was a lot of Ole Miss fans that took over Omaha, really. They took over
Yeah.
Omaha,
Oh, yeah.
passionate
Yeah.
there. And that's the thing. That state of Mississippi, I'm sure you've learned, they've got passion for baseball and softball in that state.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think on all sports, everybody
Yeah.
loves the winner. But yeah, baseball, even Mississippi State winning the national championship the year before. It's our job to put a great product on the field. But when you do that and you're successful, people will show up and support you regardless of where you're at. But people here love Ole Miss. They are passionate
Yeah,
and they
that's
love
true.
it, and they're willing to invest in people and in their programs at a high level. And I think that's something I've been impressed with even when I first got down here and saw some of the different things that are happening in college athletics. It's a really special place to be with the support that we're getting from the people that, where Ole Miss is really personal to them, and their level of commitment and involvement and contributions has been impressive, and it's been impactful and game changing.
No, you're right. The passion's there, and I think it's been shown at football tailgates with the Grove, right? Like
Oh
the
yeah.
experience is nothing like it, right? I'm
Yep.
sure you've taken part of that. It's a pretty
Yep.
cool experience.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's hard to put into words, and unless you're really there, you don't really, even if you see some pictures, it doesn't really do it justice. As grand as it is, as beautiful as it is, and it is just that. It doesn't disappoint when you see it in person, and it's even more impressive.
Last question: what's going to be the keys? Is obviously you're going to start the year up in Mexico for two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yep.
Unique. First of all, take me through that decision of being there for 2 weeks in a row
Hmm.
instead of playing just the 1 week. You're playing there 2 weeks in a row. But what's going to be the keys for your team to be successful this year and accomplish your goals?
Yeah. Well, part of being in Puerto Vallarta for 2 weeks was our conversation about our stadium. And because we didn't know if we'd be able to get onto our fields until we started conference. And so part of that kind of eliminating one travel trip was maybe just to go to one location and not be traveling back and forth for 2 weeks with two flights. And so again, our administration kind of supporting that. And they're two really good weekends. It's great competition. It saves on our athletes and their travel. We have great academic resources here too. So we'll set ourselves up to be successful, even though we miss a week of school. But we got two of our toughest weeks outside of conference, those first 2 weekends of of the season. And then we come back home and go to a travel trip. We picked up ULL. So play great in a great hostile environment at ULL, which would be great for our team, but we're really trying to get them battle tested, we think we have some potential here. Really happy with where we're at, but you got to keep your kids healthy, get them healthy, keep them healthy. Figure out we got to do our job as coaches to figure out how to manage all the different pieces on our roster. And but we have some lofty goals, and we're pretty mission focused as a program right now, and not just talking about it, but kids showing up and doing the work on and off the field, and building those relationships, holding each other accountable, holding themselves accountable to that standard to go after some things that haven't been done for a while. And we put our schedule together with an idea of, if we do our job and we host, that we can be in the conversation, or we can be in the conversations to host at the end of the year, and maybe not get sent out west again. But we got to do our job, and we got to be ready to go. I think, how we come back and how we plan our January weeks, to get ourselves ready. But that first weekend could be the difference of us putting ourselves in a good position to host as well. And but we got to show up. And I think if our mentality is right and we're battle tested and we can handle quote unquote hard, we'll be able to finish. And if we can finish, then, we'll have a chance to extend our season one more weekend in May and hopefully into June.
And you mentioned the stadium. Is it renovations that was kind of like the in the process
Yeah.
there?
Yep. In the plan, we had to pivot a little bit because of some of the stuff around the stadium. And so we've pivoted from the original plan, and it's going to be great for our program. And I don't know, I don't want to talk about it too much until everything is solidified, but we've had some really good meetings the last couple of months. And so I think there'll probably be something that'll come out again with what's pretty concrete moving forward. But stadium's supposed to be ready for 2024. But it was supposed to be 2023, but with that pivot, which ends up being a benefit for us as a program. Well, we're looking at the 24 season for our new stadium to be ready.
That's exciting. Okay, well, look forward to that. That'll be
Oh
exciting to
yeah.
look for there, and
Yep.
take the look forward to those news coming out, and certainly the future's bright, obviously, for the program moving
Mhm.
forward. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time. I know from a busy schedule there. Hope you have a good holidays. Look forward to seeing your team when they get on the field, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Always great, Eric. Thank you, and happy holidays to you.